from John 10. Very truly I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheepfold by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all of his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. Jesus used this figure of speech, but the Pharisees did not understand what he was telling them. Therefore Jesus said again, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. This is the word of the Lord. Please do take a seat there. Great to be together, and really good if you wouldn't mind, we bought a whole stash of Bibles not so long ago so that you can pick up your very own copy of the Scriptures this morning on one of the seats. Maybe you've sat next to one. And if you could turn up page 1076, then you'll be able to see where I'm coming from, and we'll be able to go elsewhere in the Bible as well in just a moment. We're in the middle of a series. If you're new here today or you've come back after a while, we're in the middle of a series that we've called Jesus in His Own Words. So these are the very famous sayings of Jesus from John's Gospel. So we've had, I am the bread of life from John chapter 6. We've had, I am the light of the world from John chapter 8. And today we're doing the next one. We're actually going to do a couple today. I am the gate and I am the good shepherd. We heard one of those. We'll hear the other one in a moment. So that's where we are, that's what we're doing. We're in John chapter 10, but we're going to see in a moment that we're going to need to go in John chapter 9 as well. So hopefully you've got page 1076 and you'll be able to flick back, because I'm going to tell you the story that happens just before Jesus shared these words involving a blind man. Just look up for a second though, let me tell you the story rather than read it. So Jesus is with his disciples and looking after them, teaching them, walking with them, talking with them. And they come across a man who's born blind from birth. And the disciples use this opportunity to ask Jesus a difficult question. They say to him, they ask him, is this guy blind because of his sins, things he's done, or his father's sins? In modern language, you might say, is this guy a wrong-un, or is it like some weird karma thing? You know, something's going on in the family and it's all coming back to bite him. So that's the question they ask. And then Jesus, when they ask this question, says famously, and here's, if you want a half-hour meditation, just linger on this word this week. John chapter 9. Jesus says, neither. There's a word just to linger on. Neither. But he says this man's blindness is going to be an occasion for God's glory. Something amazing. Light is going to come into this man's life. And I am that light, the light of the world. And so he heals this blind man. He does it in this amazing way. So read the story on your own time. He gets his own saliva and he mixes it with the dust. And it's as though he's fashioning eyes for this man. It's a very godlike thing to do if you think about it. Only God makes something out of nothing. That is a godlike thing to do. So it's like he crawls down and from the dust, which in biblical terms is like nothing, he produces something. eyes. This guy can see, but he can't see immediately. Jesus gives him this gift, and then he tells him, go wash in the pool of Siloam. Go and do that, and you'll be able to see. And sure enough, for the first time in that man's life, what must have that been like? He can see things he's never seen before. Family members never seen before, he can see. The road in front of him that he's only ever felt and heard, he can see. What a change. And he worships. Later on in the story, this man is overcome and worships. But at the same time, there are religious leaders known as the Pharisees who turn up on the scene. And they are like the gatekeepers, the religious gatekeepers who monitor and watch over the religious life of God's people. And they're like, this, all right, he might be healed, but it's a counterfeit. This has been done in all the wrong ways. So it was an unauthorized day. They call out, it's the Sabbath, you shouldn't have been doing it. It's an unauthorized day, an unauthorized man. They don't know who this Jesus is and whose authority he's acting on. Unauthorized day, unauthorized man, unauthorized means. This is an unauthorized healing. And when they speak, usually people, when they were listening to Pharisees, they were thinking, okay, these guys are telling us what God thinks. So now just imagine yourself in the scene. You've got an unmistakably wonderful, powerful healing done by Jesus. Wow. And then you've got these religious gatekeepers who say, no, that's unauthorized. And if you're an onlooker, I think that would genuinely mess with your head. Because you've got something genuinely incredible, astonishing, it's healed. But hang on a second. The guys we trust, the guys who are set over us, the authorities, they wouldn't have been so, we're very skeptical of authorities. We don't trust anyone. We don't trust politicians, anything like that. That's probably not the ancient world. They were probably much more like, hang on, these guys are the elite, and they're there for a reason. And they're telling us this isn't right. Who do I listen to? So that's the question that's ringing in everyone's minds. Who do I listen to? Who's got the authority? Which voice is speaking the truth to me right now? Now, can you see that's a slightly more contemporary question now when you frame it like that? In amongst all these voices, which one holds the authority? Which one speaks for God? That's the question. That's the question on people's minds, and hopefully on our minds, as we come to John chapter 10. So, who's right? Jesus is going to say, in chapter 10, we're in chapter 10 now, he's going to set up a little visual aid with sheep and shepherd. So maybe slightly unfamiliar, although I'm sure we've seen sheep. Anyone been to Wales recently? Yeah. You see sheep if you go to Wales. Nowhere else. They're exclusively in Wales. No, you can find them elsewhere. So we're going for sheep and shepherd. That's the metaphor. That's the image that Jesus is setting up. And he offers three ways in which we'll recognize the good shepherd. Like, how will I tell who the actual genuine shepherd is of the sheep? So he offers us three things. Verse 3, this is chapter 10, verse 3. The good shepherd knows his sheep by name and leads them out. Verse 9, the good shepherd will be more like a gate than a gatekeeper. We'll see that. And then verse 11, the good shepherd will lay down his life for the sheep. We didn't have that in our reading, but I'm tagging it on just at the end. Verse 3, the good shepherd knows his sheep by name. Verse 9, the good shepherd will be more like a gate than a gatekeeper. And verse 11, the good shepherd will lay down his life for the sheep. So let's just go through those three things really quickly, and hopefully it'll be helpful as we see who Jesus, this good shepherd, is and why we might listen to him even amongst all the voices. That's the aim. So the good shepherd knows his sheep by name. Verse 3, the gatekeeper opens the gate for him, And the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he's brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. The good shepherd will name. He calls his sheep by name. Now, in amongst all those other voices, and if we sort of bring this to the modern day, we might hear all sorts of voices, maybe other religious voices, other worldviews coming in, crowding in, and telling us a bit like the Pharisees did with the blind man. So back to the story with the blind man. They are calling this out and saying this is an unauthorized healing. And they actually say in the end to the blind man, they say, you were steeped in sin at birth. It's nice, isn't it? You were steeped in sin at birth, and they throw him out. Steeped in sin at birth, and they throw him out. Now, that is the work of shaming, and it happens in so many different ways. It's a powerful tool, and it's used by religion to get people to do stuff. So it works when you go to your dentist as well. Who's been to the dentist recently? I went to the dentist. And dentists are so good at this. You sort of lie back there, just think of the dentist. You lie back on a chair. You're so vulnerable in that moment. You're sort of wide open like this, and they're poking around in there. And then they start asking you things like, and they're wearing this, mask, and, they've got lights focused on your face. And then they say things like, do you clean your teeth like this? I'm like, all right, yes. All right. And if you get past question 1, it's how many times do you clean your teeth? Do you clean them twice a day? Yes. Then, do you use an electric toothbrush? Sometimes if I've remembered to put it on charge, right? But that's not enough. They keep going. Then they ask you this question, do you floss? I don't even know what that means. They ask you, do you floss? Do you use these things? And they were showing me these little things, and they have like different gauges on them. You've got to floss, Mike. They sort of going like this. And all the while, sort of putting stuff in my mouth and making you feel deeply uncomfortable. It's like that. It's like a dentist in that man. I'm sure they don't mean it. But in that sense, spiritual shaming, asking question after question after question until I feel so inadequate. I don't know what to do with myself. And hopefully, and I guess the idea is that will bring you around, hopefully make me clean my teeth or floss or something. Now, religion does that so well. And in fact, so many other ways we find that, right? Whether it's online, when we're looking at our phones, and we're seeing different things, different messages on there, designed to call out the pariah, the wrong un, name him, shame him, cancel him, like that. But let's not exempt ourselves here, because this also happens amongst Christians. And we can do this as well. In fact, the disciples are getting onto this even as they approach this situation with the blind man. They're saying, what's going on with this guy? He's obviously done something, or his parents have done something. What's the score? Now look, Jesus has a completely different angle on this man's life, this blind man's life. And you could summarize it like this. I'm going to call you by name, and I'm going to lead you out. Instead of making you an object of shame, he does something different. He does something like this. I'm going to call you by name and lead you out. Now that is a very different thing. If someone, in the Bible, if someone calls you by your name, you know what's being said there? Your name is like who you are. Do you remember when Moses is speaking to God and he says, tell us who you are. What is your name? And God says, I am who I am. I'm the Lord. I'm the gracious and compassionate. He starts saying who he is. When Jesus names us, he's saying, I know who you are. I really do. He's actually already done it several times in John's Gospel. He meets Nathanael at the beginning. And right there when Nathanael's by the tree, he knows who he is. Even before he's met him, Nathanael's like amazed. How did you even know me? Or the Samaritan woman by the well, do you remember that? Jesus knows her whole backstory. Even before she's spoken, I know you. I know your name. Like that. And Jesus, though he knows us right to the bottom, think about this. Jesus really knows me. And that's true. He actually knows me. Not like, I know you guys know me to a degree. But Jesus, when he says, I know you and I know your name, what he means is I do actually really know you, Mike. And I know you all the way down to the bottom. What goes on in there. And it's not pretty. I do know that, though. I know you. I know you by name. And I lead you out. It's the difference of Jesus. Rather than I'm going to use this instrument of shame, which is what these Pharisees were doing, he's going to say, listen, you're going to hear my voice, and my voice will be one that names you. So he still knows who we are. He still knows what we're like. But it's a way more loving, gentle, gracious thing he's going to do and lead us out. So that's the first thing. He calls us by name, leads us out. Second thing, he's more of a gate than a gatekeeper. This is verse 7. Therefore Jesus said again, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who've come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. Now again, most of the religions of this world, most of the voices and worldviews that we hear around us provide a God who is a gatekeeper rather than a gate. Or religious people, even religious founders, the people who founded big religions, the world religions, are usually pointing elsewhere as gatekeepers rather than offering themselves as gates, a route in. See, the Pharisees are much more in this position. They are gatekeepers. They're guarding the entrance. They're making sure everything's done properly. Has it been done on the right day? Has it been done by the right person? Has it been done in the authorized way? Gatekeepers. Jesus, however, doesn't put himself in that position. He says, no, I'm like the way in, or it's through me you get in to the kingdom. Let me show you this in the psalm that we just sung. If you've never seen this before, it's a beautiful moment. Psalm 73. You might just want to turn it up, actually. Do you want to turn it up? Psalm 73, which is on page 555. You can look it up in your Bibles. Page 555. Because here is possibly the most famous psalm in the Bible, and it's about sheep and a shepherd. So it's right on topic. And I want you to notice the switch in this psalm. You're going to see that Jesus is a gate even here. Powerful. Here it is. Psalm 23, verse 1. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. So right now I'm a sheep. He's a shepherd. He makes me lie down in green pastures. I'm still a sheep. Right? Green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. Still a sheep. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through dark valleys, the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, still a sheep, hence he's using a rod and a staff, they comfort me. Then you'll see there's a break. Verse 5. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Now, I'm not a sheep now, unless sheep sit at tables, and I don't think they do. You anoint, listen to this, you anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows. What's the language? What's that language? Isn't that the language of anointed? That's the language of kings, priests, kingdom, table. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. See where this shepherd takes his people? See what kind of gate he is? He leads his people like sheep and brings them to a place in the kingdom where they might be a priest or a king, royalty, laying a table before them in the presence of their enemies, anointing their head with oil. You see, the psalm even takes you there. It's not explicit. It's not saying sheep, 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 sheep. Now you're a king. But it's there, isn't it? The gate. And isn't that what Jesus does with the blind man? He doesn't quiz him and ask him questions and check that he's doing everything right before he heals him. He comes to this man, heals him, gives him sight, tells him go wash, and gives him his new life. He's given his new life up front. There you go. The light comes in. He's got sight now, and he's got a whole new world opened up in front of him. Jesus is a gate for the blind man. The man simply comes to Jesus, and through he goes into his kingdom. Gate rather than a gatekeeper. And this produces in this blind man, well, a new life, new sight. The light comes in, and it produces worship. Later on in chapter 9, you can see he comes back to Jesus, worships. It's a life turnaround, and it's that way round. Can I just plead with you at this moment to understand this one thing? It's worth just going over it again and again and again. With Jesus and with his voice, it's not gatekeeper, it's gate. So it's like this. With most religious thinking and understanding in the world, it's do these things, observe things in the right way, go to the right places, make sure you're with the right people, and then you can come in. Then you can come in. Right? With Jesus, he is the gate. Come to me, says Jesus, and you will be in. I will lead you in. I will call you by name, lead you in. I will be the gate for you. I will open up this life of the kingdom for you. And then, in that place of anointing, in that place around the table, in that place where I've defeated all your enemies, I'm laying a table before you and all your enemies are defeated. In that place, live as a kingdom member. Live as a member. Live like royalty. Live like a member of this divine household. That way round. If you've never seen it, if you've never thought about that, please dwell on that. It's not do all this stuff. Live like a kingdom member. Once you've reached a certain standard, then I'll get you in. With Jesus as the gate, with his voice, if we're listening to him, his voice is, and it's illustrated in this healing of the blind man, let me bring you right in. I'll bring you right in. I'll give you life in all its fullness. And now that you're a kingdom member, now that you're appointed, anointed, and I've set this table before you and given you the strength and power to live, now live like a member of the kingdom. It's that way round. So Jesus, his voice is more gate than gatekeeper. Hear that? Gate. Jesus says, I'm the gate. And finally, verses 11 and 12. It wasn't in our reading earlier, but Jesus says, I am the good shepherd, and I lay down my life for the sheep. So this is verse 11. I'm the good shepherd. The shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he's a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. Verse 11 again. I am the good shepherd, says Jesus. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. Again, such a big difference. What a difference with Jesus. Here's someone who loves you so much he'll suffer for you. We all know, don't we, in relationships that really count, we've all had these experiences of relationships that really matter, the ones that matter to us, cost. When you really love someone, you will suffer for them if you really love them. That's true in family relationships and romantic relationships and friendships, family life here in church. If we love one another, we'll suffer for each other. We'll be prepared to do that. And the wonderful thing about God is he doesn't exclude himself from that understanding of what love really is. And amazingly, it provides the best answer actually to the question that the disciples originally asked. Let's just circle back to it. Do you remember the disciples, the question they asked right at the very beginning of this whole episode with the blind man? What's going on with this blind man? They asked the suffering question. This is a really important text if you're thinking about that whole thing about why do we suffer. Maybe that's a question on your mind. I see this whole Jesus thing, this whole God thing, but the suffering question is a deep one. Maybe you're sat there thinking that. Why? Maybe even right now you're like, why am I suffering like this? And why now? Why, Lord? You know, the disciples asked that kind of question to Jesus. They're like, is this guy suffering because of what's going on in his own life or what's going on in the life of his family or something? That's the question they're asking. They're asking a difficult question. Why is this man suffering? Why has he been born blind? Now, Jesus does better than just to pop out a few clever answers. I said a moment ago, he does say, hang on a second, neither. That's powerful. Then he says this guy's blindness is going to be an occasion for God's glory. God is going to work something. God is the master of bringing good out of evil. He's the master of bringing something beautiful out of ashes. That's what God does. And Jesus is like, this guy's blindness is going to be an occasion for the wonders and works of God. Those are two great answers, but nothing is as great as what he then says in chapter 10, verse 11. Because God in this moment, Jesus says, all right, here's what's really going to get you when it comes to this suffering issue. He said, I, the good shepherd, am willing to lay down my life for the sheep. No other hired hand will do that. They won't do that. They won't be prepared to suffer for you. But the real voice, the one we should listen to, the one that's worthy listening to, is the voice that says, I'm the good shepherd, and the good shepherd will lay down his life for the sheep. Amazing, isn't it, that Jesus doesn't exclude himself from that idea of love. And in so doing, he actually provides, I would say, the most compelling answer to the suffering question. There's lots of things you could say about why we as human beings suffer. But the one that always gets me, the one that I find most deeply satisfying, is that Jesus, even as he answers my question, is saying to me, Mike, I love you, and hey, I am going to suffer for you. This world is a horrible place, and I know you're like a sheep, and I've seen right into your heart. In fact, I know you so much I can name you. However, despite all of that, I'm prepared to suffer for you. Jesus, the Good Shepherd. So just coming back, the reason we listen to Jesus, I've given you three things there. The reason we're going to listen to his voice rather than every other voice crowding in, he's the one who can name us, not shame us. When all the world wants to shame us like a dentist, Jesus wants to name us and call us forward. Second, Jesus wants to be a gate. He wants to lead us in. He wants to be the path, the route in to the kingdom and bring us right in and right to the middle. Psalm 23. I'll get you all the way through the valley of the shadow and death and bring you to the king's table and anoint your head with oil. And I'll do that first. And then you can live like a member of this kingdom. And thirdly, and it's all related, isn't it? To even do that, to even get you there, I'm prepared to suffer. That is the voice of the Good Shepherd. That is the voice worth listening to. That is the authoritative voice that the sheep hear and they know, yeah, that's the one. That is the genuine shepherd, the one who loves and looks after his sheep. Let's pause, take a moment there, and just allow those thoughts to percolate down. Let's use the silence, make some prayers of our own.